Yeah, a long way from a stuttering kid. I didn't get enough love.
Welcome to another episode of the How Men Cry podcast. The How Men Cry movement is focused at getting men to talk more openly and comfortably about vulnerability and mental health and just their experience as men within the world today. And I am fortunate to have the good homie, add you right into the room. Sir Billy, how you doing today, man?
Doing good, man. How you doing?
I am doing well. It's actually been a pretty wild day. It's Monday. I'm never a fan of Mondays, but this one's been all right. So yeah, so we can jump right in. Would you like to tell the good folk at home what you do?
Yeah, my name is William Coleman. My friends call me Billy. I'm from the Chicago suburb known as North Chicago, Illinois. And what I do, I'm a global citizen. And when I'm home in North Chicago, Illinois, I am doing strategy and development for community outreach projects.
That's awesome. So your hands involved right in the community. That's amazing. What kind of motivated you to go that way with your work and with your life for that matter?
I had started off in the same kind of launching pad as everybody else, get to school, do tests, make grades, get certificates that mean something. And I just had a really disconnected experience with education as we see it now, period.
Yeah.
And I just started rejecting it fully. I kept trying to okay, but I didn't really mesh well with it. So then I just went into corporate, started working and connected with an amazing safety engineering company, which was global. And they started sending me on projects and trainings in other countries. And it just really just opened my eyes. And I was like, wow, there's a whole world out here and a world full of all these different cultures and continents and countries and cities and villages. So I was like, man, after about 10 years in the corporate structure and 4 years at that particular establishment, I was just like, man, I'm gonna go. And I moved to Paris, and then I moved over to India. From then on for 10 years straight, I was just bouncing back and forth and going. And then I just started seeing the need for, cultural amplification.
Yeah.
Really noticed that countries really struggle with trying to tell their authentic story to really show the true of their ancient cultures. And I was experiencing it firsthand in a very relative way. So I just started coming back and telling everybody, man, y'all not seeing it. Is the way y'all are ingesting the rest of the world is extremely racist and extremely white focused and white centered. But if you go there and you see it, you'll see what it is really. And so I just started really, using my platform to my social media platform to display other cultures in a very highly respected way, in a very authentic way.
Yeah. I love that, man. I'm jealous because I'm out here trying to figure out how and when I make my journey around the world, honestly, because ironic, one of the things that I use as a tool during a speaking engagement with some youth was like, if I don't remember the number, so I'm probably going to mess it up. But essentially, if you've stepped foot on every piece of land within the United States, it's something like you've still only touched like 0.00002% of, the world's land mass. So when you think of it, really, it's like we're taking this perception from, small areas and just thinking or from the bubbles that we kind of grew up in. And then we just apply that to this knowledge of the world. And yeah, I can start to see it from the little bit of traveling that I've done, that it's just I fully agree with what you're saying. You really got to sink into these other places. So I'm trying to catch up to you. We're gonna have a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, seeing Black migration in real time. You can go to Black and Abroad Official on Instagram. That's where you images in all of my videos, and I'm really excited because I partnered with um, Zoe Life Academy in Zion, Illinois. And we started a program called My Global Adventures, and it's for children from 6 weeks to age, I believe, 8. And
Mm.
mini passports. Let's see if I have one. Oh, I don't have one with me. But we give them little passports, and we go to different countries, and we give stamps, and we really just talk to them about like global identity and kind of introduce it very early, and just kind of try to remove any space for fear to come in, and really just like get them started with understanding that, you know, you can talk about Brazil, you can talk about Angola, you can talk about Thailand, you can focus on those places just like you focus on any other place. Normal. You can eat like they eat, you can speak like they speak, you can do all of that, or you can welcome them into your space, and that's okay. So it's been really good. We've been running it for about 13 weeks.
Nice. Congratulations. Yeah. I have so many. I'm gonna have to keep my focus because there's so many ways I wanna I wanna go with this, but I'm gonna keep it to where we're supposed to be for this conversation. We're gonna have to go grab lunch or something after this. No, so well, one of the first things that comes to mind is, so how did you grow up? Did you grow up, with travel introduced, or was that like part of your family unit? Or what, because I get more of the motivation of, after you started to travel throughout your career, but I'm just curious, was that something introduced to you young at all?
Travel, no. Like moving about, no, because my mom and dad were, quite fearful of movement. But from early on, my mom gave me a global identity, so she will always say like, you have to think of this country, or you have to think of that country, and you have to know what's going on in this. She, from a research perspective, from a literary perspective, she was always like, make sure you're reading authors from these places, and make sure you're thinking about them, and that's kind of where it stemmed from. Like my mom was always like, what is it like in this place? What is it like in that place? Really keeping me aware of my level of privilege,
Mm-hmm.
really balance, helping me understand, what blackness is within a white dominated, system, but also saying like, okay, but there are privileges that are, from being born in this space. So that's kind of developed.
Yeah. No, wonderful. Wonderful. So now to dive into a bit of the more focused content here. What does the word vulnerability mean to you, and how do you relate to it?
Oh, that's a tough one. If I'm shooting off the hip, I'd say vulnerability for me, it sounds like loss of control.
Mm.
My therapist, I'm really connected to control, but yeah, vulnerability is scary, man. In its truest sense, right? When you really just being honest with somebody, and you really putting yourself out there, you have no control on how they're going to respond to it. You have no control of how they're going to react. You have what you hope to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it relates to me. But I am practicing, being more.
Yeah. And you said that you're early in your journey. We didn't go any further to it, but did you mean I think that was before we started recording, but early in your like therapy journey, or is that what you meant?
Yeah, so I just finished my third session. I just finished my session. I'm using cognitive behavior therapy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm really enjoying it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations, man. Yeah, from some, not that it's any there's no competition around it, but from somebody who's a little further along in that journey, not in terms of the work, just the amount of time. Just keep going is the only thing I would say, man. Because every time I run around, oh, I'm good, blah blah blah, or I'm like, or every time I have this little thought of, maybe I'm good and I don't even need to go anymore. A couple sessions down the line, a little bit of life hits and it'll check you again. So congratulations, and I'm glad. What pointed you towards wanting to take that step towards that journey, your journey towards therapy?
Yeah. So
Started how?
so going into new environments and going into new countries and new cultures and establishing family, that's kind of like my catharsis. That really settles me. It really balances me. I really enjoy learning new languages, trying new things. And 2019 was really tough because, I came home in June of 2019. My little sister had come and she started exploring life with me. And she came to Nepal and Thailand. And I was like, okay, I'll just drop her off at home, come make a few bucks and then jet back out. And then COVID happened, March 2020. And I was like, man, okay, I guess I'm stuck. So let me just, and then the jobs that I had got shut down. And then I was like using all of my savings that I was saving for going abroad. And at this point, it's become, it's like family trips now for me, because those spaces that I've been in, I've developed true relativity. Those are my families, and I miss them a lot. So I started to get really sad, really angry, and just really anxious. The anxiety started to build, and then we got through 2020. And we were like, man, we made it, let's just wait for these vaccinations and everything will be great. And we'll just, kind of move forward. And then the beginning of March, my family caught COVID and everybody went down. Like everybody went down. And it was, we hadn't gotten vaccinated yet because they hadn't approved it. And then like out of nowhere, my dad just went like down, and then he ended up on a ventilator, and then he passed away on March 18th from COVID-19.
My condolences for that. My condolences. Yeah. Wow.
That one was really tough because due to differences, I hadn't spoken to my dad in a really long time, about 8 years, and the first time I had spoken to him, like looked into his eyes, was while he was behind the glass at the ICU. So that was really, really tough. And he had started learning sign language, so he was like doing some signs and he was texting, and I could just see that he was dying, man. It was visceral. It was like you could touch it, like the pain. You could touch it. And
wow, it's really intense.
yeah, and and at the same time, it was also like matter of fact, right? Because you've got these nurses around you trying to do the administrative stuff, and you're making sure the insurance is okay and your mom is okay and your sisters are okay, but at the same time, you just like you got a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? You got a lot of stuff, and nobody's gonna talk about it if you don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And so when my dad passed, it just was too much, and I was like, I reacted normally, and for me, normally is to just go back to work.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I had launched a nonprofit organization called the North Chicago. I'm the founder and executive director of, and I was just like, okay, let's run this. Let's push this forward, and then let's get jobs to improve community health. And I was just breaking, man, just like slowly but surely. And I reached out to my homie, and I was like, thankfully, she is in the mental health field, and all of my friends have created safe space to talk about mental health. And I just told her, I was like, man, I need help. Like, I don't think I have the tools, man. I keep trying, and behavior started to just get bad. So then, she's like, okay, let's let's start to look for a therapist. And then I started just like, I gotta shout out Black women, man. Like I started
Yeah.
like that I wanted to go to therapy, and like the Black women around me was like, bet, like here's how I can help you, this where I'm going, or this is
Yeah.
talk to. And it was really that was so helpful, man. Like that it was so many people around me that was like, go, like
Yeah. No, that's beautiful, man, because I mean, again, firstly, thank you for just sharing all of that. And just that amount of detail. And I can only imagine how intense just all of that has been. So just I appreciate all of that. And then secondly, man, for sure, like that network of people thinking in the same vein um is just so powerful. And like, I'm glad you even mentioned that, because I've had kind of in the same way, just kind of been enveloped and supported differently through all parts of this process, through good close friends, the women in my family. Like they really, and I think it even kind of speaks more to the conversations in general, is like I'm glad that the tone seems to be changing more and more on a daily basis, of like helping men to actually find the support. Because I don't know about you, and maybe this is kind of another question, but it's like I only ended up going to therapy because my partner at the time essentially helped me to get into starting the process. I'm not sure if I would have made that step without all of that support, and maybe, I don't know, that's not a real question that I can ask, but at different points in your life, do you feel like maybe you could have or should have gone and just didn't have the, support to do it?
That's a tough one, man. I do think, just from a like, if you're just talking about the maintenance of a muscle, the same way you get a kid started in athletics, you should get them started with that brain work. It's,
1,000%. Yeah.
Don't have, even if there's no trauma to speak of at that moment, just the fact that we want, like, our way of seeing the body is like, you want it fit and you want it sharp and you want to be able to perform in these ways. And I think, the brain is exactly the same, man. And we really do ourselves pushing it so far. It seems like therapy is something like what you do if you're broke. After
Sorry.
words, I think it's something that you should introduce to your family just as you start a family, when you start a relationship. I think it's just something that you should talk about. And because we don't think we be out here. So there's two terms that I use a lot. One is unintentional harm, and the other is psychosis. And a lot of people are running around with psychosis, and a lot of people are running around causing unintentional harm, and it's not a dig, but it's just like we're all being pushed into so many anxiety, in so many situations that cause anxiety. And if you're not readily talking about the tools that help you identify that and then unload that so that you can, work from a fresh space, man, there's no way. There's no way.
Listen, I have on that note, I mean, I was just having a really, kind of heavy conversation about it, where when I look around with stuff right now, I'm like, I'm just tremendously thankful to still, one, be alive, and two, not to be in even worse circumstances than now. Just the amount of, like, now what I realize is just, self-harm, and then, like you said, harm to others, all this other stuff. Like, I think that's been, and even the shame, and then, like the other weight that comes with you from carrying around the stress of, I know for me personally, with like relationships not going well, and that can be family, romantic, etc. Like, And that's before you even just get into regular old life stress, works, work stress, get your bills paid, all this types of stuff. And you're right. I mean, it's the more and more aware that I've become about myself and then others, it really does start to seem insane that this is not on more of the forefront. It's like, what do you mean you can't? Like, I cannot even understand how I was existing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's
and I think
crazy.
The thing is that, not only are we not going to therapy, but we're not taught to make introspective dialogue a regular thing, right? So I'd say if your family, like if y'all checking in, that's different. You know what I mean? And you got this relationship with your pops and with your moms where they really just letting you like explore your identity and you really like, man, this is who I am and that's different. But the reality, we know that's not common. You know what I mean? And even within those really well-built family structures, you still see stuff pop off, but you talk about from a Black poverty perspective, come on, you know what I mean? Like you looking at the war on drugs, you looking at, the pipeline to prison, you got all these things running, I remember when I moved to Paris, I had a very specific way that I would cut my hair. And it was very like, it was a line, always a line. And I remember, I went to Paris and I found, this guy from Haiti and he was cutting my hair and it was real fresh. It was real cool. And then I moved to India and somebody just asked me, they were like, that's weird. Like, why do you have to stay behind a line? Like, why does your hair have to stay behind a line? And I was just like it just blew me back for a minute because I was trying to in my brain when I had chosen to put lines in my head and I had never made that choice for myself. It was just always like, this is what you do as a Black person, as a Black male, you put a line and your hair has to stay. And I remember so many conversations where people would be like, you need a haircut, you need a haircut, you need a haircut. It was just like, I was just like, about that, and then it went into like my perspective of self and when I think I'm ugly versus not ugly, and it really was about hair growth. And thankfully, when I'm overseas, man, there's a lot of meditation. I go to a lot of temples, a lot of monasteries. I do a lot of reading, and I really dive into authors like Krishnamurti and Eric Fromm and other just like thinkers and philosophers. And I just, just kind of play with thought and that keeps me balanced. But that conversation isn't ready yet, right? Like you come back home and like even my hair now, like people are like, man, what you doing? And I'm just like, it's hair, man. Like I get to just express my hair and it doesn't mean anything. But everything here does mean something, right? So you take all of that without no therapy, without no even recollection, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that's saying like, look back and ask yourself, when is the first time you got a haircut? What did that mean? Did you have any you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I think you can see how like that just can disable community. It can unhinge whatever security we had with even mating, with even dating, with even like platonic, you know what I mean? Like it's hard. And so then you start to see like we just bang into each other.
Yeah, no, and around that point too, like I think that's a bit of what I've kind of been tired of, even within my own personal situation, like even around this whole project now, like it doesn't there's almost been a really aggressive dismantling that I've been doing over the past couple of years, just because I think a lot of those things are what have bothered or pushed me into further depressions. Like I might have already had mental health things going on, and a lot of the like coping mechanisms is just like, because like I'd say what a bit of your story reminds me of is like I was just hanging with a couple of my friends and we were in Detroit hanging out somewhere, and like everybody's walking by. It was like a Friday night or whatever. They're all walking by and everybody has the flyest of every type of whatever shoe on. And, you know, my boys are there, oh, you know, blah, blah, blah. Dang, they got the so-and-sos, they got the this, and that, whatever. And, you know, we sit and we're watching. I ain't saying anything for a little while. And then I was just like, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I don't give a fuck about any of them shoes. I was like, I couldn't tell you what the latest version. I was like, I do not care about that at all. But this is what's crazy is I'm comfortable enough to say that now in life. But through all of these other periods, you know, and it's a really simple example, but I just mean like in these other periods, the social pressure around something that simple would have led to bullying, to this, and that, or even the fact that my parents wasn't buying those shoes like that. There was not bread in the house to do it. So, you know, it's like, so I think, and that kind of leads into another talking point is, you know, do you felt like you got, a lot of social pressure, and you can take it within the lens of men in general or within the black male experience, you know, do you feel like you had a lot of social pressure to be a certain way as a man growing up?
In the house? No, like that's one thing I can say. And that's one thing that I never thanked my dad for that. Like he never attached any particular thing to my gender. And I definitely was not the playing football, basketball, bringing trophies home. I wasn't that kind of boy. I was, you know, I was feminine. I was weird. Like I was wiry and just like, you know, just little Billy, you know what I mean? And, you know, he never chastised me. Like he never was like, no, don't do that. No, come over here. You embarrassing me. Like never. But outside, man, it was tough. Like I remember, you know what? This is okay. I want to frame this right. In North Chicago, there's so much love. Like there's so much love, right? So when I think back about my elementary school, my middle school, high school, like everybody was just mad cool, but I knew I was weird. Like I just didn't understand why everybody was so cool, but they were. But there was this pressure, this kind of like whisper underneath that like, you supposed to be doing that. You supposed to be moving like this. You know, and it didn't hit me too hard. Like everybody was pretty much cool because it was just like, oh, that's Billy. You know, Billy just, you know, little Billy. But I saw it in other people. I saw other people being like my mom, I've never worn a pair of J's in my life. Never. My dad was like,
me neither. I've never, still to this day, I've never had my foot in a pair of Jordan shoes.
But I think my dad was just like, man, you could try that again. Like, when we even promoted the idea of getting Jordans, he was like, not a chance. Like you can wait till you get you a paper route and then you can work and then you can get you some J's, but I ain't doing that. But then like I started later on in life, I started looking and it was like, man, some people have that relationship with J's from birth. Like they parents put them in them J's from birth. And then like, I remember the one time I noticed the difference in white and black boys with shoes being clean. And it was like, you know, for white, I was like, man, white boys just get to have dirty shoes. Like girls still be checking for them or guys will still check for them or whatever, but they shoes will be dirty. And I just used to sit and think about that. Like, man, like, nah, as a black man, them shoes cannot be dirty or you are just not happening.
So, but you know what? Something interesting about that fact, because it's something that I've kind of thought about, because I err more on the side of scruffy and dirty stuff too. Half the time you can find me out in the woods more than you're gonna find me in, you know, somebody's club. But I think what's interesting, you know, just about that is the more that I've reflected, even with my own artistry and my own work, I think sometimes when you're coming from positions where maybe you don't feel all that valuable, because that's something that I've been working through a lot. I have a lot of self-worth issues, if I'm just being transparent. And I think like from the outside in, people are like, how could you? But I'm like, trust me, it's a dark place. But the point that I was more so getting at is that like, I wonder if we are so connected to these things that provide external, imagery or like external feelings of value, because there's a lot of narratives that maybe challenge against that feeling. And I think about that even more amongst young men, of like, I have to show this bravado, or I have to present in this type of way to be considered worth something. And that's been something that I've been kind of looking at differently recently. And it's kind of sad, in a way, of just like, that's the bit of value that we're holding on to. And maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like I see that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think it also goes to show that, like, as much as we try, like, even right now, I feel like there's a lot of like identity work being done in the community, but it's still so monolithic. You know what I mean? We're still like black man. You know what I mean? It's very one. And at least in North Chicago, I can say there's not spaces for black men to express a spectrum of identities, right? So it's like, fit into you might got like 3 boxes, right? You got the nerds, you got your jocks, you got your players or whatever, you got your drug dealers, or you got whatever, you know what I mean? You got your street culture, you got your affluent blacks, you know what I mean? But it's very tight. The box is still very tight. And I don't think, like, when I think about education, I really want to give young black boys this like encyclopedia of black maleness, and saying like, yo, like, you could be any of these things, or you could create a new category. Like, this cat over here is doing this. Like, this cat is really into blues, or this cat is really into the trombone, or this cat is really into, I don't know, Dutch culture. Like, really, and I think I really started to expand on that when I was overseas, and like, people were so welcoming, right? Because we're taught this narrative that like blackness is always going to be met with this, you know what I mean? It's always going to be this like aggressive, like backing away of it. And I didn't get that, you know what I mean? And I will say that I understand that like light skinnedness does, play into that. So I don't want to challenge anybody's perception or perspective who had a different situation, but they just so inquisitive. Like, when I go to, like, my family lives in far west Nepal, and when I would go to far west Nepal and I'd go hiking in the mountains near the Himalayan range, you got people, we got the same skin tone, and they just looking at you like, and then you got your hair out and they like, whoa, like, oh, we've never seen one of you before. You know what I mean? And it's so different because they're looking at you like, how did I not know you was over there? And you looking at them like, how did I not know that y'all was over here? And I just want more people, not only black people, but more people to experience that, to say like, there is more. There is more. And I think if you can't do that literally, therapy is a great entryway to just start exploring that. More.
Yeah, and that brings me to another question for you. What do you hope to get out of your journey of going to therapy?
Right now, man, I'll be honest, I'm very specific about understanding, identifying tools to manage anxiety and stress, and learning how to call on them at the moment when something is happening. So my family culture is not one of acknowledging a traumatic situation, and 2, like, not like working through it, right? So if something crazy pops off, there's not this like, oh, let's sit down and go for drinks and really like talk about that and make sure everybody's okay and make sure everybody's got the tools. So and I used to be okay. Like, if something popped off, I'm like, oh, that's wild, but this is, but when I started really looking into cognitive behavioral therapy, I was like, man, like, I'm doing some of those behaviors. You know what I mean? I'm not really expressing myself. I'm starting to do a lot of just retreating. I'm starting to do a lot of explosive communication from holding in after so long. You know what I mean? And I was like, I don't want that. That's not my personality. That's not my personality. Like I'm quirky. I'm quirky, but I'm not that what I was displaying. And I was like, no, let me try something else, you know. And then I started to just kind of unravel certain things. And I'm like, we haven't talked about mental health in like from a family like timeline perspective. We haven't asked, was there mental health throughout the family? Like what is our, you know what I mean? Like, if your mom caught or your mom and grandma have diabetes, it's a high chance that you could get it. Or, high cholesterol, there's a high chance you could get it. And we're not asking questions like, Mom, how do you deal with anxiety? Or Grandma, how did you deal with anxiety? Or if you do ask those questions, in most cases, they're like, I prayed about it. I linked on God for that, which I do think is still valid. But I just think like, if you broke your arm, they would be like, yeah, you could pray to God to get you to the hospital, to get the right tool to fix your arm. That's just like biological, and I think we need to look at the brain the same way and say, yes, you can pray. But there's also like tools and behaviors and exercises that you can be doing on a daily basis to just say, like, what was that just happened? Whoa, did I really see that from a clear point of view, or did I skew that? I mean, that, and like right now I'm working on boundary setting. I'm like, man, we have never talked about setting clear boundaries, friendship, and you know.
Yeah, no, it changes. You know what's crazy, man? Every one of my relationships has been changing over the past couple years. Like the relationship with myself, the relationship with other people, with friends, with families, every one of my relationships has been changing because it took me a long time. Like I've been very, I would consider you somebody who's tremendously self-aware, so I would say even from the outside in, you continuing on your journey of therapy, I think you'll do just fine because you're already very aware and very close to what's going on. And I think I probably had a lot of that for a while, but I wasn't really applying it to what was important. I might apply that to breaking down something within business or breaking down blah, 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 engineering. So I could figure it out in that way. But I know that I just wasn't listening internally. And I'm still like working on truly listening and like acting on what's going on now, instead of like suppressing. Because you're right. Like, I think one of the most uncomfortable things about these processes is when you bring up the mirror and you don't look like either who you think you look like, or you're not you're not showing up the way that makes you feel good, or that makes others feel good for that matter. So I mean, I really appreciate it. Like I said, I gotta take you to lunch or something, man. We gonna have, because wait, yeah, I don't, whatever, we're gonna figure it out later. But I have a couple more questions for you, and so one of them would be, are you comfortable sharing a story about a time that you cried or maybe had to express vulnerability? And if not, you can always hit pass button. But
I'm gonna be honest, man. I have been perpetuating this cycle where I was crying only when I would get like drunk. So I would, really, and I still do this. So I'm not gonna speak of it in past tense because I'm still working on it. But I would stay stone faced or happy. You know what I mean? I would present happiness, and then if I was drunk, the moment I feel sad, I was just like, oh, I just start gushing, and I start saying whatever it is that I feel. Um, and that's just that. Oof, that was oof. It was so bad, man, so bad. I'm trying to think of a time, but I want to think of a time where it was just an honest cry. Um, I if I can think, I had a friend. She knew me. I was a child. She was an adult, and her name was Karen Joy Kennedy. And she was just this really infectiously joyous spirit. She just really um, embodied and presented for me. I don't know if she felt that inside, but for me, I saw just like self-awareness, and she was like, you know, I'm gonna wear my hair I want to wear. I'm gonna do what I want to do. Like she used to do this thing where she would go to the movies whenever she felt like going to the movies. Like she would just go to the movie and then she would sit down wherever the movie was and then watch it and wait for it to come around again and keep watching it. I remember I used to think about that, like, man, she don't follow no rules. Like she really dope, you know? And then she passed. She passed away. And when she passed away, they were like, when we went in the house, she had a picture of you and your sisters like up on this shelf. And you could tell like she had put that picture where she could see us all the time. And I just cried because I was like, man, dang, like my friend, you know what I mean? Like my friend passed away. And I cried. Yeah. But that was cried.
No, thank you, man. I really, really appreciate you sharing that as well. And honestly, both perspectives I appreciate equally because it took me years. It took until like I was performing on stage, which was like probably one of the first times I had cried in like adulthood. It was like 26 or 27 years old, really. You know, it was like in terms of one or some of those more full releases. And it comes out for me with like performance. And I can kind of understand like having to almost tap yourself into those modes. And I really do wonder now how much of that is just like, you know, social suppression of, because I have to catch myself. Like even now, I literally have to catch myself if I have an actual feeling or need or desire to cry. I feel both things of, oh, you know, let it out. You're working on a project about this. And then there's a whole other piece that's still like, mm-mm. And it's so, you know, it just with the awareness coming with it, it's so fascinating where I'm like, damn, this shit is deep because it's so, you know, it's just so present for me personally. I don't know if that's your experience, but I just really appreciate you sharing both of those times. And yeah, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say mine's is one-sided and it's to stop.
Yeah.
And if I feel like I can feel, you know how you get that like it's like a sensation that comes up in the nose and it's, you know, you feel like everything is clearing and you like, and that chest start coming up. I literally like, that's when and it's not my conscience because I can tell the difference between my conscience and my brain and my mind. It's like just historical voice being like, nope. You feel whatever, you can take you about 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and then you back to it. And I practice that often. So, you know, that's something that I, you know, hope to, I mean, it happened in therapy, man. Like it started and then I was like,
where do you think that where do you think that comes from for you personally?
I still see, you know, as much work as I do on my identity and as free as I am as a human being, I still fight with the narrative that emotions are girly, emotions are weakness. Uh, yeah, I still fight with that. I still battle with that, and I, you know, mistakenly started to have this like affinity for stoics and stoicism. So I, you know, started to be like, oh, you know, smart people can just hold it. You know what I mean? Wise people can just hold it. Like whatever happens, they just hold it. And it started to create this bottling up, right? And so even biblically, I think I started ingesting things like if you think about we grew up in the Bible. Like my mom was like, "You gonna read this," and I really know the Bible very well. And I remember reading about Moses and the Israelites, and they were complaining, like just being real ridiculous and irritating him. Like they irritated him every second of the day, and they was asking for water, and he was like, "Oh, you want water? You want water? Okay, I'll give you water." And he hit this rock with his rod, and the water came out. And in the Bible, it's like God was like, "Yo, like you lost it. Like you're not supposed to be talking to my people like that. That was real crazy. You taking, credit for something that I did for them. Like that's madness." And I remember just always thinking about that. Like you're not allowed to lose it. Like you're just not allowed to lose it. Like no matter what. And I saw emotion as losing it. I never saw like, this is what happens when it's healthy. This is the difference between, like, if you look at rain, there's a trickle, and then there's a downpour, and then and I never was presented with an image that was like, this is how you display a healthy balance of joy and pain, or anger or sadness or whatever. So I just still to this day, I'm like, my nephew, I heard my nephew the other day. Now this one is real. Like I didn't realize that I was adopting some of the same, shit, So like the way my uncles taught me and the way my dad taught me, my grandpa taught me, it was loving, but it was that manly love where it was like, I care for you, so this shit's gonna feel rough. Like this, you just need to get this shit. Like it's not really soothing. And there was something happening in the house with the toilet. And I see like, I still like, dude, I can't believe I'm saying this. Like gender roles still like fuck with me, like real heavy. And I see manliness in a very binary way. And I came in the room, in the bathroom, and I could see clearly that my nephews didn't know what was going on with that toilet. And I was like, what? Are you like, come on, like, you don't know what's wrong with this toilet? Like, you don't know how to handle this situation? And I just was like, I thought I was just being like, yo, like, handle the business, And then my nephew started crying, and then he, he's older. He's like 21. And I didn't factor in like how fragile you are. Like his grandfather just passed, and my dad played a pivotal role in him. Like he was his instructor. He was like his dad. And I don't know if my dad taught him how to fix a toilet, and for him, he was like, this is my opportunity to like show that I know this, but I'm asking a man that I know knows this how to help me. And I just really missed that opportunity. You know what I mean? I missed the opportunity to show up and say like, yeah, it's manly to ask for help. Yes, it's manly to kind of check with someone who, you would think would know better. And like, it just, and I didn't cry though. Like I didn't crying. And I was just like, damn, like I immediately apologized. And I was like, yo, like that was out of line. I was out of line. Like,
but you know what? I love it though. Honestly, I love everything about that, because you witnessed it within yourself, and then in real time was able to check it. I wish I would have got apologies, you know what I mean, for just so much of the sideways shit that's come out or been, said, or this and that. That's such a beautiful thing, because that's in real time changing and just adjusting a narrative. And I bet he won't forget how you showed up for him in that moment of actually apologizing, because that is so powerful and so strong to be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to take some accountability in this moment to try to move forward, because I think even beyond even just gender, generationally, that was not necessarily the approach in general. It was do whatever I say and you're going to do this and that. And basically your parents are God and they just, whether right or wrong, and they shifting and telling you to do whatever.
Yeah.
Not even just your parents, the elders within those. So I love that you did that. And I really want to just commend, that you took that extra second to actually apologize too.
Yeah. I really felt bad because you know, the first thing he said, the first thing he responded with was like, "It's okay," you know, and I was like, "No, it's not though," you know. I was like, "It's not okay." Like, with someone, and he was high, he had hid, like he closed the door and was crying, and he only healed.
Yeah.
My sister had, you know, and even she was like, she kind of said it playing, but she was like, "What you say to my son?" You know, and I think like in order to protect black males, like unfortunately we have to hold black males accountable, right? So if you are in some way in charge of black males or other black males, like it's important to like have high accountability and let people be able to check you to be like, yo, you might think you're doing some this is how we always did it type stuff, but you are fucking that child up and you need to really think about it. And I think that's a tough kind of conversation to have within the black community, but I think it has to come from other black males. Like we have to look at each other and be like, oh, like you want to sit up here and pretend like shit's sweet? It's not. It's not. And if we gonna sit in these circles, one, we need to create the space for these circles, but then we got to be honest about that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, if you never got an apology from your parents, like I don't care how great of a parent you are, you done fucked that kid up in some way just because that's what we do as humans. We be fucking each other up. And
Yeah.
ever gotten like a serious like apology or just like some sort of explanation like, yo, I know what I was doing at that age. Sorry. But we always get, I'm doing the best I can. We always get that, you know, and it's like,
Yeah.
it ain't enough.
Which is still, you know, there can be validity to that.
100.
You know, there can be validity to it. But yeah, you're right. Like there's but again, I'm not I think that some of that for sure I do feel is generationally, even just in terms of how conversations occurred and or didn't occur. Like I feel like our parents' generation and even somewhat before, there's a lot of closed offness where you see more and more of a push for just kind of like opening of you know, how we express or feel. And not everybody moves in that direction, but I fully agree with you that, you know, it's going to take a lot more men. I mean, like a lot of the basis of this project, even as I was like, the difficult part about any kind of men's work is that there's not that many resources for men, like for grown men, like as much criticism goes around for men, and I fully understand the criticism, but just saying like for as much conversation as there's not as much support. And you know, I think that's why it's been really nice to even kind of resonate, to see if there's, you know, a young man or even older gentleman that can see a conversation like this candidly, and we not screaming at each other, and I'm not calling you names and what, you know what I mean, just like genuinely breaking it down. I think more and more men doing that regularly will have just ripple effects. At least that's what I'm crazy enough to think.
I agree with you.
And it leads to actually my final question for you, which is, so what do you think the world needs more of from men?
What do I think? What do I think the world needs more of from men? Oof. I can only speak from me. I can only speak from me. Cause I don't know. But I think when a man shows authentic affection and consistency, like loyalty and consistency, it's earth shattering. It's earth shattering. When you have a man, even if that man don't even know that you peeping him as a model, or you know, watching him to be like, man, he really like, you know, living as a really strong centered human being. When you see a black yeah, I'm talking about black men. When you see a black man like just authentically affectionate, like he out here loving whoever he love, caring for whoever's in his care, and he like shows up consistently, and if he doesn't, he's accountable. Man, that shit is next level, and that's what communities stand on. It's like trees, you know what I mean? Like, you know, men stand like trees, and I think like it's missing. is missing. I really want to see, you know, men, specifically black men, just find that authentic affection to be like, this is how I show that I care about something. And this is, you know, we've been taught, don't care about shit. You don't care about shit. You just get that bread and fuck hoes and do whatever, and, you know, ugh. But like, you know, I watched DMX. DMX was one of the more aggressive male figures in my life that I was like, man, that dude is just like, ugh. And he told this story about a butterfly and how he really wanted to hold this butterfly, but he went to grab it and then he crushed it, and then he promised that he would never like try to grab a butterfly again or something. Like, it was very like centered around that. And I was like, man, he just released this like really like authentic, affectionate, and you just could kind of look into him and see him. And I think like if dudes do that, like, you know, because if you show affection, mugs, they'll clown you quick. I was like, oh, you love your partner?
Yeah, yo, I don't even want to, I keep trying to not interject too much, but it's just so good. You know, I was just having this conversation where I was like, why is it so culturally cool that it was like a meme that was going, or whatever, that was going around of like, black folks will like celebrate and tear you down all in the same sense. So they'd be like, look at this old degree getting ass, you know, smart ass, nerd ass. Just like but it's, you know, I get that to some extent, kind of what we were talking about with even like the shoes. I think at times those things acted as coping mechanisms to potentially help us through harder times. You know, if stuff is kind of messed up, like it can help to make you a little light, or even subconsciously probably, you know, tearing folks down gives you a little bit of an ego boost. It's this kind of, you know, dangerous game. But no, I mean, I love exactly, you know, just what you were saying of like, it is more powerful. And I can even see, like, I'm working on it on a day-to-day basis personally, but I can see, you know, the ripples, like I was saying, like the differences within relationships. And I can see my father, he just took a trip out here. It was the first time in a really, really long time that him and I have actually spent time together like that. And I can see, you know, just like changing with like age and what that's doing and the type of ripples that it's having within the family. And maybe one other question, because I somewhat lied, because I still got another little half question for you, which is, what do you think you would like to see from the world for men?
What would I like to see from the world for men?
Or maybe what do men need from the world is maybe another way.
I'll answer the first one because I feel like I can't answer the second one, because I think we need safe spaces for men to come together and sort their shit. Like,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, you center, here's a football camp, here's a sports camp, here's this. No, we need a center, or a series of spaces that is wholly dedicated to you coming and sorting your shit out and saying like, I don't know if it's mental health professionals, I don't know if it's physical health professionals, I'm not too, maybe counselors or whatever, but that's what we need from the world. You need to make space for us to get in there and write out the kind of training that we need for each other, and then give us this to run, to really do real FUBU shit. So like, you know, like really just let us come in and be subject matter experts of our own experience without being judged or invalidated, and then let us develop training and education from that, and then let us lead it. Bring in the, you know, the people that can help, but then start to, you know, leverage us as those, you know, teachers. And I think if they really did that, even in North Chicago, like if they just did like and I'm not talking about one of them corny ass men's conferences where you coming out and you talking about money. No, I'm talking about where y'all getting that shit. Y'all not talking about God or money. You talking about what's happening right now with no excuses and all accountability, and saying, can you even talk through what happened? Like, I don't even think there's a space in North Chicago right now for men to talk about what it's like to live a life without your dad. Like, that's such a common story for so many of my brothers, and I just don't feel like they even have the space to even articulate and say, like, how do I even say, like, I didn't have a dad, so I just had to just make this shit up as I was going on along. And then what does that mean for me? And what does that mean for my kids? And what does it mean for my woman or my man or whatever? Like, none of that. We don't have any space to do that. And I think we have to demand that, to say, like, we still got to talk to each other, to ask what we need, to like do like a legit real survey amongst us to say, like, brother, what do you need versus brother, what do you need, you know?
Just beautifully put. I mean, honestly, I love it, and I also agree. You know, that's what I hope that some of this is. Honestly, like, it's been more and more day by day. It's been taking kind of a life of its own, and at this point, I've just surrendered to kind of riding the wave of wherever it goes. But I really appreciate the conversation, just the amount of gems and jewels that you dropped. I just threw the time out the window. I ain't even care. I hope you ain't have another thing coming up, because it was just too great of information to put a time cap on it. But no, I want to thank you again for just coming out on the podcast and just for sharing all that stuff deeply, vulnerably. And again, I congratulate you on the self-work that you're doing. I congratulate you on starting up therapy. I congratulate you on, extending that apology and that mentorship. I'm really thankful for everything that you shared today, man, honestly.
Yeah, man, I'm thankful for the work that you're doing. I'm thankful for this platform. Please keep going. Don't stop. Please keep the project going. Seek out more guys, because it's still so taboo. It's
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And of course, they're going to get the flack and the pushback, but it's needed. It's needed.
Yeah. No, thank you, man. I appreciate you saying that as well. Any last words or kind of shout outs you want to throw to the people at home, or tell them anywhere they can find you or something like that?
You can find me at Black and Abroad Official on Instagram. And if you want to support my nonprofit organization, you can go to North Chicago Think Tank on Instagram. You can find us at www.northchicagothinktank.org. We are focused on improving the health of Black women between the ages of 26 to 64 for the year. So if you want to help us with any mutual aid projects, or help us start up some volunteer pods, we'd love to hear from you and collaborate. So yeah, definitely.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much again, Billy. And like I said, I'm trying to do these to have just a different 100 guys the whole time, but you make me kind of want to bring you back on to figure out what your process is looking like in another few months or something, just to see what else comes out. So
keep me in mind, man.
Yeah, no, but thank you again, and thank you all for tuning in to the How Men Cry project. If you want to find out more, you can visit howmencry.com. We're accepting submissions from guys giving stories, holding up a sign that say "I cried when," and talking about vulnerability in that way. Or if interested, I'm pulling guys up to chat on the podcast and just share whatever is going on with their personal experience and connection to being a man, vulnerability, and mental health. So thanks again, everyone, and tune in next time.
Yeah, a long way from a stuttering kid. I didn't get enough love.